absolutely lying to you and to myself if I said I don't worry about the number every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lie to say that I don't.
Hi there, me again. It would be great if you could hit the subscribe button below this video or wherever you're listening. It helps more than you think. It helps me get stuff done. Thanks a lot. Nasri, welcome to the Sound of Sales.
Hi, Bram. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
How are you doing today?
Good. We're in the last couple of weeks of Q2, so lots to get done with the team. But it's been an exciting couple of months so far, and still a lot to get done. But otherwise, very good.
It's crazy how the year flies, right? I realized earlier today, like this is month 6 already.
Yeah, I was saying in the car over the weekend with my wife, we're like, it's halfway through the year. Already halfway through the year. Where is 2022 gone? You know, by the time we know it, it'll be Halloween. We'll be doing Christmas, and then it's Happy New Year again into a brand new year.
Wrap up and done.
Crazy. Absolutely. It does fly.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. But at the same time, there's a lot happening within those months and weeks. But I feel like in sales, time flies. It's like quarter over quarter. It never ends.
No, definitely.
If I would give a call to your parents right now and I ask them what their son does for a living, what would I get back as a reply?
My mum would just say he's always busy. He's always in meetings. I think he sells something. I don't know. I think it's technology, something to do with tech. But he's always talking to people. That's what he does. My son, he loves to talk. So he's always talking to people. And he manages a few people, I think, as well. I think that's probably the response you'd get from my mum straight away. She's a very proud mum.
That's pretty cool. Do you ever talk about work with her?
I do. I sometimes get her advice on things because my mum's always been a big part of my life, and she raised me as a single parent from a quite a young age, and I would always use her as a sounding board for any issue I might have in life, personal or during education or school, even down to professional as well. So I'd get advice from her quite a lot. So she knows what I go through. She knows kind of how stressful sales can be and the ups and downs that you get. Because, one weekend she'll see me and I would have had a great week, closed a few deals with the team, and I'll be in a great mood. And then next week it's, the opposite. She goes, "Oh, what's happened? Busy time at work? Was it hard? What's do you want to talk about it?" So yeah, I do go to her to get just some sounding advice from mum. You can never go wrong with mum.
No, recognizable. How a mom can read you, your mood, absolutely, and how it was at work and what's going on in your mind. That's crazy.
Absolutely. Cheers.
If you need to explain in a couple minutes what you do today, what would that be?
As a VP of sales, I would say my core responsibility is to ensure my team is successful in every aspect of their work and their day-to-day that ultimately affects the company's bottom line. Right? So I take full responsibility for the performance of my team, for the way my team behave, the culture within it, the way they operate, their tenacity at times, their cautiousness at times. All of that is in my responsibility to ensure that I give them and enable them to have everything they need to excel and be successful in their job. Because if they're happy people selling, ultimately we'll be closing more deals, we'll be delivering the right value to our customers and beyond, and that affects the company's bottom line in the most impactful way you can see from any team in the business. So I think that was how I would describe my core responsibility. If I look at it from the other side, from the customer-facing side, what am I there to do what's the company there to do as a whole, is to ensure that our customers become successful by growing and increasing their online revenue. That's ultimately our mission as a company.
Mm-hmm. How do you get where you are today?
Up to managing and running a commercial
Take us back.
team. How did I get here? Well, I think by accident is probably the right way to start. But that's the short story. And if we go all the way back to kind of first job out of university, I don't think anyone decides they want to be a salesperson. It's not like, back to mum, I go to mum and say, Mum, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a dentist. I'm going to go study finance and work in a bank. Those are the kind of roles that you go and tell your parents about. No one goes and says, Mum, I'm a salesperson. No one does that.
It happens.
But it happens, exactly. So my first job out of university was I was just thankful and grateful to have a job, to be honest. And I joined a graduate scheme at Bloomberg, the big financial services and technology business, company of 11,000 employees at the time. And there's me, fresh-faced out of uni, coming into this graduate rotation, not having a clue about anything. And the rotation took you through the first aspect of learning the product and understanding the finance background and basically doing university again, but over 10 weeks. And you're meant to do that role for about 12 to 18 months or so. And within the first 6 or 7 months of being in that role, I started to work closely with one of the sales managers and supported them with some data, and they wanted some information and supporting one of their customer projects, and built a good relationship with that sales manager. And ultimately, he took me into his team 6-7 months into the role. And that was my first taste of being a junior sales associate. So at the time then, I was, booking meetings for some of the senior salespeople. So what was an SDR, but it was never called that at the time. Attending some meetings and shadowing, running some small sales cycles myself, until I got my own set of accounts that I was then working and progressing on. Did that for 4 years, learned a lot about the methodologies of sales, because it was a big, 2,000-3,000 salesperson team. So they were big on training and big on enablement. Mm-hmm. So you got a lot of that stuff. But I got sick of being in such a big team. I wanted to make a bit more of an impact. And I moved into the first on the ground kind of role in a startup that had been established for some time, but launching a new product. So it was a brand new product suite. And that was the first time I got a taste of what it meant to have product market fit. And looking back now, I realized the error that I made, or the mistake that I made. Because without product market fit and being that first salesperson, it's a skill set you either enjoy and want to help and develop, or it's something, if you don't have product market fit, you just can't be successful as a salesperson. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately for me, it was the latter. So I went in, we started booking meetings. We weren't clear on what the messaging should be, and it was changing every single time. When you're doing a demo, the talk track was changing, the value prop was changing, because you're adapting to what the prospect in front of you is saying. And you're trying to find the right messaging to use again and make it repeatable. So unfortunately, didn't close any sales in those first few months, but I actually got headhunted into another role. But looking back at that business, they're now doing very well. Most of the meetings that I had are actually now paying customers, 6 or 7 years later. So it did work out in the end, but just the wrong time for me to have joined them. In the role that I moved into, I was, again, the first kind of SaaS tech salesperson that they had hired, and really honed the sales skills and studied the methodology and worked under 2 very brilliant sales leaders and a CEO that helped me kind of grow into what I, look back and say was an enterprise account exec, and learning that whole skill set and learning the whole process of how to run a 6-figure, 7-figure deal, and was quite good at it in the end. That I got given a team to manage myself, and they were the junior ones coming through from university, first job hires, etc. And I learned how to start to nurture some talent and start to coach people into doing things the way that I do them, because look, it's working. It's a process that we can scale. Here's how you do it too. And then I did that for 4 years, moved on to another startup. You can tell I'm pretty addicted to startups now.
Yeah.
And that's where I got my first taste of sales management. But in probably the most difficult period ever, and this is back in the first months and summer of 2020 when we had the pandemic. And I was given the mandate of building and scaling a sales team from scratch, building the right processes and playbooks from scratch to ensure that the business was in a position to go and show its commercial momentum for its future fundraising rounds. And that's where I really learned to understand how to build out what is a growth engine, look at the components of each aspect that you need to think about, and deliver that in a scalable, repeatable, and predictable way, right? Those three magic words that every commercial team, every sales leader, every commercial CEO is looking for. How do I build a repeatable, predictable, and scalable process? And under some brilliant leadership and with the director of sales at the time and the CEO, we delivered that engine in effectively 2 quarters, which took us to the fundraising round that we wanted, and a team that was highly successful and building out a repeatable process. Mm-hmm. Then I went off to do it again where I am now.
Again, a startup?
You get? How could you tell? Yes, a Series A startup, again, en route to its next fundraise.
Mm-hmm. Within there's the building of the process, the building of the growth engine, the hiring of the team. Yeah. At what stage would you consider a company is ready to build that engine? What are the things in there that you look out for in order before you join a startup in doing that even?
Yeah. I've learned now that it very much is that product market fit. And 2 ways of looking at product market fit. Right? Number one is the messaging that I'm saying now, the value proposition I'm talking to you about now, how does that resonate and how does that align with the prospect's goals and ambitions and growth trajectory? And if you've got that fit, that there's a pain, there's a problem, there's a challenge that only a piece of technology or solution can solve, and guess what? You're that piece of technology or solution, then you've got product market fit type 1. Product market fit type 2 is, okay, once we've got it in and it's been installed, it's been implemented, it's been running for a few months, what is the results that the business has seen? What are the benefits that company can now talk to you about? And what can they tell their friends and other peers about? And that's product market fit type 2. So if you break that down into messaging around what is my need as a prospect, what is the value that I can now see and perceive, and what is the delivery? What can I actually do and what have I seen as a result? And if you can break it down into those 3 messages, that gives you product market fit type 2. So for example, to give you a very, very basic one, let's take Slack, right? Mm-hmm. As a prospect of Slack, my need statement is I want to communicate with my colleagues and potential peers and other networks and communities. The value statement is, now that I can communicate with my colleagues and peers and other networks, I have been able to get instant communication and instant problem solving. And then the delivery is, because I've got Slack, I've seen my productivity increase by 25%. Very crude example, but that's kind of the way to think about it in market fit type, product market fit type 2.
But I feel that's only one little part of when you're ready to build the engine. I think it's a crucial part.
Yes.
Where it makes sense to build the engine. But in terms of like, how much people would you, if today you join a startup and they tell you like, okay, we have product market fit, we want to build a growth engine. What are we looking at in terms of resources? How many people do you think are feasible, or should you budget in order to build that engine even?
Absolutely. And this comes down to kind of, what do the founders of that business want to achieve? Right? Where do they want to see the business from a revenue perspective, from a size and scale perspective over the next 12 months, 18 months? And also, what resources do they have financially to put into making that happen as well. So this is where you really start to build your first ever kind of top down or bottoms up model and kind of marry the two together. So obviously founders will have a target in their head. They say, we want to hit this number. Often that's kind of up here somewhere. And then after you've looked at kind of the model and just your basic assumptions and understanding of the data, your number's down here somewhere. And you've got to kind of align the two and show them the route to the possibility. So you really start to build your capacity planning. Take the data that you've got today within your pipeline, within the sales processes you've seen, and start to apply that in a repeatable way. So if you look at, for example, I have 100 conversations, I get 5 meetings, I get 3 opportunities, I get 1 deal. If you've got that data today, you just start to scale that with assumptions and with some coverage inside to understand, okay, if things go well, this is where we can land. If things go mediocre, we'll land here. And then that gives the founders a bit more confidence and understanding, okay, that's the mathematical route to getting our deal and getting our number. And that once you've got that tells you how many people you need to hire as well, if you can marry the right model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's always a tricky part when I speak with founders or early stage companies. It's always like, yeah, we want to reach 2 million in ARR in the first year. We're going to do that by XYZ, but it's always like a bubble. Like the numbers you put in your financial plan is like a lot of startups do this month times 30% extra, and every month you're going to do 30% without actually emphasizing how you're going to get there and who you need to hire and that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Who do you consider the most important hires in that first stage?
If we're talking, a company where it's literally just founder selling at the moment, I think for example, the most important hire at that point is an SDR, right? Someone who can start to build pipeline, test the messaging, test the value propositions, do the right A/B across different personas, and really hone that in. And then that feeds pipeline for the founders to continue selling, because the founders got other things to focus on within the business and other things to grow. If you can get the right SDR in early on to build the pipeline, that sets you up for success going forward. Because the number one input to any model is how much pipeline do I have?
Yeah.
Right? That's the number one input to everything else, besides accounts and TAM and all that kind of stuff. Then the next hires, I would say, are your first salespeople, not your sales leader. I think at this point, it's probably still too early to get in a sales leader, a VP of sales, a CRO, or whoever. I always advocate that the first hires should be people going to do the hands-on in, day out selling. Once you get your account executives in, 1 or 2, and 2 very different styles of people is probably what I'd suggest. Get one of those that is going to be high value, low volume, and get the high volume, low value. So you can test both sides of the enterprise and commercial model within the sales cycle. See how long it takes to close the bigger ones. See how long it takes you to close the smaller deals. And then you can start to repeat and build off that. That's your core team. Your 1 SDR, your 2 account execs. And those account execs should not be under any illusion that they're not having to do some of their own prospecting as well, right? Until you scale up that engine. So I'd probably say that little unit are your first 3 crucial hires.
How do you feel about the conversation that's going on right now online? Is that your first hire should be a marketeer and that sales should come afterwards? How do you feel about that one?
I'm one of the biggest advocates of not disconnecting sales and marketing. I think every salesperson's a marketeer, in my opinion. And I think every marketeer has an aspect of sales with them as well. So why are we separating them into 2 teams? They should be one single team. And this is the way we're set up at Hakodo, is that we call ourselves a growth function. And in that growth function, you've got marketing, you've got RevOps, you've got SDR, you've got account execs, and at times you've got input and joint alignment from CS. All of those functions create the one aspect, which is growth. So I don't like to separate them. Should the first one be a marketeer and the second one a salesperson in terms of hiring? I mean, I wouldn't be against it, but like I said, I don't think there's a difference in the way those mindsets should be operating. It's how do I deliver growth?
Yeah, it's. I think the discussion is basically that because in the early stage, for example, you don't have your brand behind you. You're just building out that sales team. So the sellers will have a harder time because the brand is unknown. But on the other side, of course, the other people say, yeah, but why get my brand known if I don't have my revenue? Because if I don't have my revenue, the company will die anyway.
Exactly.
So yeah,
that's an interesting argument.
Combination. Yeah, it's worth thinking about it. Like, what do can the founders keep selling for a while and leverage the brand that is being put out there by marketing? Or I think it also depends on what model you're trying to build. It can be if you're strictly building an outbound model instead of the inbound.
I can see in perhaps a PLG setup, where the product is very much driving the growth. You don't need too much interaction from sales until the product's embedded, implemented, people are using it. Then, of course, marketing makes more sense than going after an SDR and an account exec at that point. But if, like you say, you're very much an outbound-driven model where you need interaction with the prospects before they can close the deal, then sales is probably the first hire. So, I can see now, depending on the product structure, revenue structure of the company, which hire is probably the most important.
You can take it with you for your next startup.
Let's hope it's not anytime soon.
It's about 4 years, your mark?
4 years. Yeah, 3 to 4. Yeah, let's say 3 to 4 years now.
Awesome. What does it mean for you if you're building that organization, you're building that team? What does it mean for you to have a results-oriented culture? If I give you that word, what triggers that with you?
For me in startup, results-orientated is about hitting the level or setting the level that you want to achieve that is, as a VP, is within the plan or above the plan, of course, because this is what you're giving your team to deliver. And then raising that bar every single time that you hit it. And you have to be able to, A, track it, every single metric within the kind of the RevOps view, and B, celebrate when you hit it as well. Mm-hmm. So to give you an example, last week, my team, in one day, the SDR team kind of booked the most meetings that they've ever booked. And no one knew it was the record. They just looked at the number. They said, hey, that's quite high. You've had a good day. And I said, you've had an amazing day because it's 1.5 times higher than you've ever done before. And the last time you went anywhere near this number was in February of Q1. I was like, oh, really? Wow. And then they all got really excited and boosted to say, wow, we've just broken a record. And the same goes to kind of deals. So, for example, we closed quite a large deal a couple of weeks ago, and it was, in fact, the biggest one we've done as a team. And now we know what that record is. So we've got a Notion page set up that sets every single record. So the biggest SQL, the biggest opportunity generated, most number in a day, and who owns each record. And then that drives kind of that results because everyone's looking at each other going, I'm going to knock you off the board. I'm going to put my name on the board instead of yours in a fun way, right? No one's being kind of aggressive in any way. It's healthy competition. But that gives us the results-orientated view because everyone's subscribed and signed to the same plan, to the same objectives, and they know that it's a team that will deliver those numbers, not an individual. Mm-hmm. That's what it screams to me.
How do you inspire your team to keep pushing that limit?
Reminding them every single time that we have the opportunity. So for each kind of stand-up that we do, 3 times a week, and in the team meetings kind of once or twice a week, we sit and just set a state of the nation every time. Here's where we are today. Here's where we're trying to get to. And here's the route that I can see as your leader that gets us to there. Mm-hmm. And here are the actions each of you need to be doing to make sure we're on track and being able to get there. Are you aligned? Are you bought in? Yes, no. Any problems, speak up now. And that's kind of the view that everyone has because they know, okay, next time on Wednesday, we meet again. Naz is going to ask me where I am with these deals. He's going to tell me that these deals are making up the number. And if I don't have a good answer for him, he's going to, I'm going to let him down. I never shout at my team. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I never kind of get angry at them, but I constantly remind them that they're here for a reason. They're here to deliver on exceeding results every single time, and that I and every single one in the team believes in them as well. And we're here to do it together. And that's how I keep everyone kind of accountable for it.
And if you look at yourself, what makes you inspired to be your best version?
I'll kick myself if I don't. So I've got a very, for me personally, I've always had a view of every day I can be better. And I'm not just saying that. I know it's a very cliche thing to say, every day I'm going to be better. I don't go shouting about it. I just tell myself, I'll sit at the end of the day and say, okay, what did I achieve today? Okay, that was good. That wasn't so good. Jesus, Naz, what were you doing there? That was awful. I'd have those conversations with myself at the end of every single day and say, okay, well, tomorrow, if this arises again, this is how I'm going to tackle it. And I'm going to be better than the day prior. I'm going to be better than the month prior. I'm going to be better than the quarter prior. So always looking back and understanding where you've gone wrong, where things could have gone better, and look forward to understand, okay, what can I do differently next time it happens? How can I tackle this and make it an opportunity rather than having a risk on my back consistently? And that's how I strive to always drive and make my mindset tell me you can do better and you can achieve better every single time. Mm-hmm. Can be exhausting though.
I can imagine. It's something that I always have in mind, reflecting on your day, reflecting on what's happening, what's good, what's less good. But every time that I think about it, I have to almost reflect that I didn't reflect because I forgot it or
yes.
I didn't. Is it something that is really structured with you?
I don't know about you, but I get the best ideas just as I'm about to fall asleep. I've been lying in bed, my eyes have closed, my mind is about to shut down, and it will go, hang on, Naz. I've got one more thing to ping you. And it will, boom. Okay, hey, that's a great idea. And I'll forget it. If I don't act on it at that point in time, I will forget it. So what I do in that point is I will send myself a Slack message and delay the send for the next morning. So that way, I've done it, it's sorted. I just go to sleep now. Recharge, relax, do what I need to do. Wake up in the morning, I'm at my desk, first hour that's free, that triggered, automated Slack message kicks in. This is what you were telling yourself last night. Here's how you wanted to act on it. Yeah. And then it's there for me, right? That's my way of structuring it. Mm-hmm. And if at any point during the day I feel like, hey, that wasn't that good, next time I need to do that better, or I think we're going to have a problem here with this aspect or that aspect, again, it's just drop it into a Slack message to myself. And that way, that's my way of recording and keeping my own notes. Some people keep a journal, they write things down with a pen and paper. I respond much better if I type it than if I write. So that's the way I do it.
Mm. Yeah, I have my best ideas when I'm driving my car. I sometimes do audio notes, but sometimes I forget that I have an audio note. I might need to ping them to myself indeed.
Yeah. Exactly.
If I would call up one of your teammates right now and I ask them what's Nas good at, or what's he good at for you? What does he mean to you? What do you think they would say to me?
I would hope and think that they would say my approach and ability to coaching with them.
Okay.
And I mean this from kind of an individual level. Like the team will know that if they get stuck on a deal or have a question that they're not quite sure on how to approach, or something's happened in their sales process that they've never seen before, they know they can come to me and we can kind of brainstorm it together. And we all as a team take coaching very seriously, and it's something that I've kind of tried to instill within the team and ensure that we take it seriously. And it's not always me that's doing it. And I can give you a bit of insight into kind of our approach and how we do that. So there's two aspects to it. So we've got our SDR kind of team coaching, which happens weekly. And then we've got our account exec coaching, which also happens weekly. And the way we do it is we use a call intelligence software which kind of records our calls, records our meetings. And at the end of each week, we get one SDR or one account exec to nominate a call from the week that they want some coaching on. And we put them in the hot seat. And they volunteered for this. We never pick anyone, just putting it out there. They volunteer the call. And then we'll get into the coaching session. And the first thing we'll do is split up into two groups. Half of the group will be doing constructive kind of development areas in terms of where we could do better in the call. And the other half will be doing positive reinforcement to look at what went well in the call, where the playbook was followed, where the sales process was followed, and what they delivered well. But the first person to deliver their feedback is the owner of the call. So they go first and say, this is what I did well. This is what I feel I could improve on. And then they have half an hour of group coaching from the rest of the team on those 2 points. And by the end of it, the whole team has learned something rather than just that individual. And we've all taken accountability for each other's success. So that's a long-winded way of me telling you, if you ask my teammate, they would say the way he enables us to coach and coach each other.
Within those sessions, do you bring up theoretic stuff or things that you have learned along the way, or do you just let them have their own session?
No, I do. I do kind of feed in as well. But what I love about my team is that they've all got experience. Even those that have only been doing the role for a year or two, they've done it in the hardest kind of economic environment in the last year or two, right? Mm-hmm. We've had booms, we've had COVID, now we've got downturns. So they've sort of seen and felt everything. And then I've got AEs that have been selling at the enterprise level, for 8 years or 10 years plus. So we've all experienced every sort of thing inside our deals. So as much as I will allow them to share and dive in, if I feel I've spotted something that someone hasn't raised, yes, I'll give them my own kind of take on it of how I would have handled it if I was in that situation. And then we also adapt back to our playbooks and the sales methodologies and frameworks that we've been taught and we've learned and we've embedded. We always go back to that and make sure, A, we followed it, and B, is our process and methodology still relevant? Has something shifted that we need to then adapt the playbook or change the playbook for it? Mm-hmm. And we have that agile nature about our process kind of built in, and everyone's on board with that as well. But it does change, and it can change on a monthly, on a quarterly basis as we adapt to the prospects.
Yeah, indeed. And it's something that as a leader, you need to somehow stay up to date, I believe, with whatever is going on, all the technologies out there. How do you keep your finger on the pulse on that one to make sure that your team has the modern way of selling being taught to them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, of course. So we reflect formally at the end of every quarter, and then we reflect informally at the end of every month. So we have kind of a win-loss ratio retro on our deals, but then we also look at our tech stack, we look at our process, we get the feedback for where things are going wrong, where things could be improved. And the number one thing to make that happen is, as a sales leader, don't have an ego. Because if you get feedback on your process and someone doesn't like it or it doesn't work, don't tell them, no, you're wrong, I'm right, I've done it this way. Listen, right? Listen to the team. If you're not involved in the deals and you're not sitting with them, you can't even begin to guess what's happening in the meetings, right? So be humble, be able to listen to the feedback, test the process yourself. And what I do every quarter is I will run 1 or 2 deals myself that the team don't know about, just to test the process, just to test that it's working. And if I get it to a point where it's closing, it's whichever AE loves me the most gets it that quarter. But I do kind of run cycles myself to test the processes. I shadow all the calls with the team. I'll listen back. In terms of how I stay up to date, I've got my kind of influencers and people I follow on LinkedIn, books, and podcasts that I listen to. I'm lucky to have my wife, who is just a sales guru in terms of the methodologies and the frameworks and the training. So I'm very lucky to have her, and I can kind of dip into and ask her knowledge. And like I said, it's just being humble and understanding that there's always a better way to do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you come to think about it, there's so much weight on your shoulders, basically. These people are relying on you and your knowledge.
Yep.
How do you cope with that? Is that something that you sometimes lay awake of? Like, how are we going to achieve this? You're laughing, so there must be something.
I think I'd be absolutely lying to you and to myself if I said I don't worry about the number every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lie to say that I don't. And I would routinely look at it and go, how are we going to do this? And then, after a conversation with the team about their pipeline, both individually or at a group level, and to hear them passionately talk about their deals, to hear them talk about their processes that they've got, to hear how they used, this framework we developed and it delivered XYZ success, and they're going to close a deal next week because the prospects agreed to the timeline and the mutual close plan. That gives you the confidence to see that a process you've developed is being adopted in the first place, like people are using it, and B, it's delivering the results you expected it to deliver. And then that gives me the confidence when I look back at the number and go, well, it's quite a stretch, but we've got this deal, that deal, this deal. They're all in commit stage. All the processes followed. There's a 80% chance they'll come through. And look at that. We've got coverage to the number by 20% now. And you've got to be able to take that step back. If you just look emotionally every time, you'll kill yourself. And I've learned that. I've learned that the hard way over the last kind of couple of quarters.
Yeah. It's a tricky one, because if you are thinking about it and letting it emotionally impact you, then it will flow over to your team. They will start to feel it as well, and they will get demotivated as well. And then, you probably won't hit that quota, and then everything goes loose.
Absolutely. And it goes back to the point I was mentioning earlier about results orientated, right? It's no secret that in a startup, the targets just jump consistently every quarter. Every quarter has to be bigger than the last.
Yeah.
And you need time to reflect and look back and say, team, we did X in Jan. 6 months later, we've done 3 times that. And that's just 6 months. Think about it.
Yeah.
You were only delivering this amount in January, and now you're doing 3 times that amount, and it's only been half a year. Be proud of the moment, be proud of your achievements, and always look up to the next kind of level in the mountain that you're climbing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't look back, it's not worth it.
Yeah, that's true. And probably your team is growing as well to be able to reach that quota every time. So not every single individual is stretched too much. Because I think you as a leader, you've had a lot of experience in the past. You've seen things, you've went through things. But of course, and most SDRs are pretty fresh. And if you gave them that quota on their back and they don't know how to stretch that or handle it, then that has a backward effect.
Yeah. I guess when you put it like that as well, it's I think it's quite humbling to look at, the SDRs you've hired, the graduates, the first time hires, and that they look at you and believe that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's quite humbling. I never looked at it that way. And to think about all the people that I've hired recently, and we're in this startup world together, and, we're not only we're building a business, but we're building friendships with each other. To feel that they all have faith in me is, it's quite astonishing. I don't know what they're thinking.
Well, and no stress to you.
No, exactly.
As a last question for you, time flies. Yeah. If I could give you a billboard at the side of the road and you can put anything on it, what would you put on that billboard?
Call your mum.
She has the most knowledge.
Call your mum. That's what's going on the billboard.
Yeah. It's a sentence that has a lot of meaning. It's something that can be related to if you're worrying about something, your mom would probably have good advice for you. But another thing is that I think, how do you put that? But it has this emotional feel to it. You know what I mean? It's like...
Yeah, I see where you're going with it, and I agree. It's like you say, the first aspect is call them because they're going to have the advice you want.
Yeah.
But also call them because you deserve and she deserves
Yeah.
that you both just take a step back from
indeed.
from work, from life, from rubbish, from stress. Just take a step back and have a happy conversation.
Have a chat. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I like that one. I like that one a lot. Cool. Before I go call my mom, I would love to thank you for joining me on The Sound of Sales.
Thank you, Bram. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks for having me on.